So after weeks of speculation about when those starter deck cards were going to be revealed, today Bandai have decided that it is time to start those reveals. 2 out of the 6 brand new starter decks that are releasing in early June have been revealed in their entirety, and we are going to go ahead and go through them card by card. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into it. Before we get things started, however, I would like to encourage you to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel as well. I know this is something that a few people have been urging me to try and get to do, so finally, I'm going to go ahead, hard commit to it. We're going to start making some content over here and also live on Twitch as well. You can see the Twitch link over there in my Twitter profile, or X, whichever you prefer to refer to it as. Also, give me a follow on there as well. Join ourselves up to over 350 followers, hopefully very, very soon. But yes, starter deck news. We have the 2 starter decks out of the 6. Purple Black Gear 5 Luffy and Mono Black Marshal D Teach. All of their cards have been revealed. But before we dive into them, we also got a bit of interesting other news dropping here earlier this evening. Thanks to a very, very good friend of the channel, Mr. Wassy Plays. He has revealed that there is going to be another PSA collaboration with the leader. I'll let him detail all of the details and exactly how to get it. I'll leave his account and his video link in the description of this video. So once you're done watching through this video and going through all of the cards from the Purple Black Luffy and Marshal D Teach starter decks, head on over to him and have a look and see how you can get your hands on that brand new PSA leader. But as we said, we've got some starter deck cards to take a look at. There are 6 starter decks that are going to be making their way into the game for those that might have missed the news or might be just joining into the One Piece card game for the first time. 6 brand new reprints-based starter decks similar to ST16 through 20. So think your Mono Blue Doflamingo, your Purple Luffy, those kinds of structure decks. We are getting 6 brand new ones of those. We are getting, as our leaders, we're getting Shanks, Jewelry Bonnie, Buggy, Yamato, and then Purple Black Luffy and Marshal D Teach. And we have had, I believe it is officially confirmed now as well, the release date of those starter decks are going to be coinciding, if I can get to the correct tab, they are going to go ahead and be coinciding, there it is, with the release of OP11, or at least the projected release of OP11 here in the West. So OP11, A Fist of Divine Speed, release date June the 6th, the exact same day we are going to be getting these 6 brand new starter decks, which typically, for those that have just jumped into the One Piece card game now and missed those initial reprint starter decks, will have a lot of those reprints in them, but then have 5 mechanically unique cards included into them. And as we've seen with the original ones that were released, some of them have been game-changing, bringing decks like Doflamingo and Purple Luffy right back into contention in the competitive format. So let's have a look and see exactly what is in store. We're going to start off with Purple Black Luffy, ST26, which is a deck and a leader that I was really, really hoping for to get a really, really strong card. I played this leader in Glasgow Regionals in March, which was really, really fun. Great experience to finally get an opportunity to play the game for the first time, really, because for those who maybe aren't familiar with who I am and the stuff that I do, I'm typically a caster for the One Piece card games. So being able to get hands-on in a competitive scenario for the first time ever with this game, at least a higher-level competitive scenario, was a really, really cool experience. The results didn't quite go my way, but I ended up playing Purple Black Luffy. It was a fun choice after a little bit of manic testing, shall we say. So, Purple Black Luffy, Gear 5 Luffy, for those who may need a little refresher on what the leader does. Don X1, all of your characters gain +1 cost. Very, very underrated ability. And then on your turn, once per turn, when 2 or more Don cards on your field are returned to the Don deck, so a Don -2 or more effect, you get to return both of those Don back to the field. One of them comes in active and the other comes in rested. So essentially, Purple Black Luffy relies on early Don manipulation, getting yourself that +1 in active when you're using those Don minus abilities early on, and getting into those higher cost characters towards the mid to late game. It's kind of morphed into an aggressive ramp deck, really, with a little bit of mid-range capability, because you're playing black. So you're playing some of that cost manipulation and KO effect, which we'll talk about in ST27 in just a moment. But a quick look at some of the non-mechanically unique cards, so the reprints that we are getting here. A couple of vanillas here, in fact 3 vanillas in this starter deck is a little bit awkward, a little bit rough, and Brook here being the only mono black card in the entire deck as well is a little bit interesting. Purple Black Luffy, in fairness, leaned more heavily in towards that purple side of the card pool as opposed to being in black. You have a couple of great options on black and in the Straw Hats, of course, as well. Static 14 Sanji is one of the best ones that comes to mind. But to only have one mono black card in this starter deck feels a little bit interesting. But then for the rest, you've got Frenosuke, another reprint for Frenosuke, the OP5. If you have 8 or more Don cards on the field, this character gains Rush with the Don underneath it. Very easy to manipulate and get out early to be able to get that 8 or more Don because of the ramping that you're doing in this deck. Also a 2k counter, always very, very important to have. We've got this Jinbei from OP05, which is a 5-cost 6k blocker. On your opponent's turn, 10 or more, if you have 10 Dons on your field, it becomes a 7k blocker, which is going to be really, really nice, maybe in the future with how tall the format is at the moment. Also got this Nami here from OP09, again, another 2k counter that has an on-play effect to grant rested Don to one of your leader or characters, but it's really for that 2k counter that you're playing this card. Then you've got some of the stronger cards as the reprints here in this deck. You've got Roronoa Zoro, which is your ideal turn 2 play when you're playing Purple Black Luffy. You want to turn 1, use your Searcher, which interestingly hasn't been reprinted in this deck. We don't have the 1-cost Trafalgar Law Searcher, which is your ideal turn 1 play. And then on turn 2, you play this down because you can return 1 or more Don from your field to the deck and get 1 Don active from your Don deck. So you'll play this on turn 2, return 2 Don to the deck, your leader ability triggers, getting those Don back, and then you still get the 1 extra active Don from the Zoro effect. So you add up to +1 in Don in the early game, which in purple is fantastic, and especially with this leader as well. There's some really funky things that you can do here, and some funkier things that you'll be able to do when we have a look at the new cards that are coming in this deck. We've also got 2 event cards in this deck. We're not quite sure about how many copies of the cards are going to be in the decks just yet. We don't quite know ratios. We just know that these are going to be the cards that are coming when you purchase ST26 on June the 6th. So we've got Gum Gum Lightning, a card that has been seeing a little bit more play in Purple Black Luffy recently. Don -2, it's a 2-cost activate main event. Just pop a 6,000 power character or less. Simple as that. Has a ramp trigger as well out from life. So early on, you might be tempted to activate this out of life with the trigger to get an extra Don. But in the main, you are using this as an easy removal option and a cheap removal option as well, which of course triggers the leader ability because you are Don -2 on your turn. So really, really nice that this card is getting a reprint here and getting an opportunity to lean into some of that removal here that's power-based as opposed to it being cost-based. The other card that we are getting is possibly one of the best cards in purple currently in the format, and that's Gum Gum Giant. The fact that you're going to be able, if you are a player that's new to the game or wanting to get yourself into the One Piece card game for the first time, likes Luffy, likes the look of purple and the idea of purple, you're going to be able to pick up 1, probably 2 copies of this starter deck and have a playset of one of the best counter events in the game right now is incredible. Pay 1, Don -2, trash a card from hand. If your leader has Straw Hat crew type, plus 4,000 power during the battle, and then drawing 2 cards. So you're getting rid of 1 empty card in hand, potentially, a counterless card if it's in a real pinch, to then be able to draw 2 and get that plus 4,000 power in the counter step. It's such a good card. Importantly to note here as well for newer players to the game, that this Don -2 does not activate your leader ability. Your leader specifically says it's your turn that the leader effect activates, so you don't get the Don back when you're using Gum Gum Giant. So one thing just to keep in mind, if you're maybe tempted to use the event early just to get some filter through the hand, or it looks, you know, oh, I want to play this really, really good rare event card that I've just been getting in my starter deck. Don't play it early. Take it from me. It is a big, big mistake if you do. And then the other non-mechanically unique card is a starter deck card, interestingly enough. I didn't realize that this was from ST14. It's another vanilla. It's just a 5-cost 7k Brook. Simple as that. Now let's get into the brand new cards. 5 brand new cards is what we are getting in each starter deck. We're starting it off with Sober Mask, the 7-cost 9,000 power character, which reads, if you have a Sangoro or Sanji character with 7,000 base power or more, give this card in your hand -5 cost. This becomes a 3-cost in hand if you have either Sangoro, the Sangoro that draws you a card when attacking if you have 8 or more Don on the field, or a Sanji on the board. The Rush Sanji is the primary target they're going to be looking for here because of that 7,000 base power or more. The 5-cost from Starter Deck 14 isn't a base 7,000 power character, so you can't even power it up with the Don underneath, swing, and then, as we'll find out, bounce it back into your hand, because on play, you return all of your Sangoro and Sanji characters to the owner's hand. So it's a real interesting effect here, and a real interesting kind of collection of things that are going on, right? You've got this -5 cost in hand thing that's going on, which is already something that we're used to on Sanji cards because of the 6-cost blocker Sanji from OP07, and then being able to bounce your Sangoro and Sanji characters back to the owner's hand. So some potential lines of play you can see here is swinging in with the Rush Sanji. So if you're on your 10 Don turn, you play out the Rush Sanji, Don -2, you get those Don back because of the leader ability, so you're working with 4 active Don. You can then swing in with the Rush Sanji. If your opponent has an answer for it in any way, shape, or form, or even if the attack goes through, you can then use 3 more of those Don to play out the Sober Mask because it gets that reduction in your hand because you've got a Sanji on board. Then the Sanji bounces back into your hand, allowing you to essentially just recycle these safe 7k swings with Rush, or potentially more if you're attaching a Don underneath it as well, because we've established if you're on your 10 Don turn, you've got 4 more Don to work with before you play this Sober Mask down and before you swing with the 7-cost Rush Sanji. So this is a really interesting card. I like the idea of this card, and obviously it's a 9,000 power base character that you're potentially paying out for 3 Don, which is really, really scary pressure. So, interesting effects. Will this see any competitive play? I'm not 100% sure. There are other cards in this deck that certainly stand out to me, which we'll get to, but I definitely think that there'll be some players that will cook with this effect, absolutely. Second off, we've got a brand new blocker to the deck. We've got Tony Chopper, 3-cost 4,000 power blocker on play, Don -2, so again, activates your leader ability. Rest up to one of your opponent's Don cards or characters with a cost of 1 or less. Characters with a cost of 1 or less is a little bit more awkward. You're mainly trying to look for either sort of weenie blockers, your 1-cost chopper blockers, 1-cost law blockers, or potentially unused searches, so like Lafitte, Jewelry Bonnie, Nami as well. It's got the on-play search potentially. But it's the rest one of your opponent's Don that looks a little bit more curious to me, especially because, as I just mentioned about Jewelry Bonnie, Bonnie relies on having 1 Don active for its leader ability to rest down one of your potential attackers on that turn. So you can potentially play down the Tony Chopper. You're not losing out on Don if this is the first thing that you play. Rest down that active Don on your opponent's turn on the Bonnie player, and then be a little bit more safe with swinging in, and you've got a blocker just in case those swings don't quite work out and you can't quite push for gains. So again, really interesting card. There are a couple of other blockers that the deck has sort of started to run. Nico Robin is one of them that stands out that the Purple Black Luffy deck has been running a little bit more of. Will this replace it? Potentially. Depends how popular Bonnie gets with its starter deck support that it will be getting as well in this wave. Then we've got one of our first of 2 super rares. This is Nico Robin, a 3-cost 4,000 power, 2k counter as well. That's quite important to note. Which on play, Don -2, add up to one of your Don cards from your Don deck as active. Now, this card, I've been thinking about this card since it got revealed earlier on today a lot, and I've been mulling over in my head about how impactful is this card when you've got Zoro, right? And you've got Zoro in the exact same deck. And the beauty with Roronoa Zoro is, obviously, yes, it activates your leader ability, gets that +1, but it's a 5,000 power body. And 5,000 power is the minimum amount, generally, on most leaders, there are some exceptions, that you need to be able to try and threaten a damage in against your opponent's leader. So being able to swing with that and then follow up with a play on the next turn without having to commit any Don to it, unless you're playing against Shanks, which you need to commit a Don to it to try and bait out the leader ability. That's the beauty of Zoro. When it comes to Nico Robin, because it's a 4,000 power body, you need one Don underneath it to threaten damage, unless you're attacking into something that's smaller and rested on your opponent's turn, say like a Luffy Searcher or something like that. You can swing safely the 4k into a 1, and you're not too worried about that. But if you want to threaten damage, you need a Don underneath it. The fact that it's got 2k counter, though, is important, because typically Purple Black Luffy has also been running Black Maria, and there is still probably a window where Purple Black Luffy still runs Black Maria, purely to deal with Marshal D Teach. If the Teach player turns off your on-play abilities on turn 2, and you're stuck with this and Zoro in your hand, or either one of the two, you're kind of out of luck there, and you can't get that early ramp going with your leader ability. You need Black Maria in that instance. But in the mid to late game, this card is a lot more useful than just running Zoro on its own, because it's got that 2k counter. And of course, it's searchable by the 1-cost Trafalgar Law, with it being a 3-cost Straw Hat Crew type character that's purple, so you can search it out in the mid to late game if you need an extra 2k. So, after a little bit of consideration, I do think this card is probably going to be run. How many copies of it? I'm not 100% sure. I don't know whether it's a 4 of in the deck. We'll have to wait and see between this and OP11 coming out as well on the same date as advertised at the moment. I'll be very, very interested to see it. But this card certainly is a lot better and a lot more interesting than I first expected it was going to be on first reveal. Then we've got General Frankie, 8 cost 10,000 power, which on play Dom -2, give up to 2 of your opponent's characters -2,000 power during this turn. This card feels kind of at odds with what the deck wants to try and do, especially while dipping into the card pool of black. You've got some of that cost reduction and removal. We've already mentioned the starter deck 14 Sanji, the super rare from that deck. The deck also runs 2k counters like Suru or one-legged toy soldier to get some cost reduction going. So this card feels really at odds with what the deck kind of wants to do in a more mid-range style. Yes, you can use it to attack into your opponent's characters, but I think that there's other top-end options that you want to look for in the Purple Black Luffy deck. So I'm not 100% convinced on General Frankie at the moment. A card that I am super convinced of, though, is the final card that we're going to talk about in the Purple Black Luffy deck. Monkey D. Luffy himself, 6 cost 7,000 power character, on play and when attacking. Keep that in mind. Don -2, if your leader is multicolored and your opponent has 5 or more Don cards on their field, your Straw Hat Crew type leader's base power becomes 7,000 until the end of your opponent's next end phase. This card is gross, in all honesty. This card is really, really good, because as soon as you play it, unless you're playing against a deck like Vinsmoke Reiju, or something that's going to be aggressively minusing Don and wants to be behind on Don for its effects, this is always going to trigger. This is always going to activate, and it's always going to activate your leader ability because of the Don -2. So, and it's a 7,000 power character. So this is a really, really nice character to play. And interestingly as well, because it's Straw Hat Crew type leader, this also works with Blue Luffy that's coming out in OP11 and Green-Purple Luffy that's out in EB02. And I've seen some comments in as well and some conversation in the community that's actually said, hang on, you know what? With Green-Purple Luffy and this, Green-Purple Luffy becomes an 8,000 power leader, which is just ridiculous. Roger's not even going to be that big when it gets released, and we know that that's coming. This is a really, really good character, and I'm really, really excited to try and experiment with this. Obviously opens up a lot more options in mid-game as well, around that sort of 5-6 Don curve on turn 3, after you've done your ramping with either Zoro or Nico Robin. You can either play this, you can play the Sanji to remove, you can potentially play Sanji and Pudding as well. There's a lot of options here. I was really, really hoping that Purple Black Luffy was going to be good and get some real bonkers cards in the starter deck. It's got a couple of really, really nice cards in here, so I'm really, really excited to see how Purple Black Luffy will evolve in players' hands when they get these decks on June the 6th. Now we've got to talk about potentially one of the most dangerous leaders in the format right now. That is, of course, Marshal D Teach, the on-play menace that turns off all of your on-plays. And I tell you what, the reprints in this deck, barring one card in particular, these do not miss. Van Augur, great, fantastic reprint, cost reduction. Jesus Burgess, one of the linchpins of the Marshal D Teach deck, one of the strongest attackers in the deck because of its inability to be KO'd by your opponent's effects, and it gets bigger for every 4 cards in your trash. Shiryu, one of the 2,000 power counter cards that we previously played in the deck alongside Stronger as well, fantastic. Doc Q, your primary KO outlet, at least before this deck, comes out really, really great. Vasco Shot, cheap blocker, love that. Lafitte, Searcher, Fuller Lead, ridiculous consistency. San Juan Wolf, the only miss here with a vanilla, but it's a starter deck. We can't make it too overtuned and chuck in 10 cost Teach Blocker or 5 cost Super Rare Kuzan from OP10. In a vacuum and overall with these reprinted cards, these are really, really nice. Things get even nicer, however, when we look at the new cards. Again, 5 brand new mechanical cards. Let's go over them. First off, we've got Avalo Pizaro, a 1-cost 1,000 power character. Activate main once per turn. Rest one of your Fuller Lead cards, so your stage. If your leader has a Blackbeard Pirates type, which of course it will do, it gets 4,000 power during this turn. So by resting stage, this becomes a 5k attacker, potentially, if it doesn't get removed. 1 cost is a little bit awkward as well. Easy removal if you're playing against, if you're playing in the mirror, Doc Q, KO, easy does it. You don't get the opportunity to use this. But in the late game, if you're looking to try and get that one extra little bit of damage, try and force an extra card out of Teach's hand or your opponent's hand just in general, this is really, really interesting. The biggest downside, though, is having to rest Fuller Lead. Fuller Lead stage, I needed a little bit, I'll be honest, I needed a little bit of convincing on the stage when the leader came out. I saw a couple of players, particularly in Italy, experimenting with stageless Teach and really, really vibing with stageless Teach because of the extra non-engine options that you could run. You could run Jax, you could run Tempest Kicks, you could run 9-cost Kaido to be able to trash stuff in the mirror. I'm looking at you, Burgess. Lots of different other varied options. But more so and more so, I've realized and I've come to learn that Teach needs stage. Full Lead is just an incredible card. So having to rest it is a little bit awkward. You don't get the opportunity to discard something away if the attacks don't quite work out. Try and search out for one of your limited 2Ks in the deck. So very interested to see if people are going to consider this. I'm leaning on the side of perhaps it's not going to make as much of an impact as some of the other cards in this deck, but I know the community, I know the player base. There are some very, very smart and accomplished deck builders out there in the One Piece card game right now competitively. People could potentially make Avalo Pizaro work. Next up, we've got Katarina Devon, another 2k counter for the Blackbeard Pirates deck. Rejoice, we're not just relying on 4 copies of Stronger and 3 copies of Shiryu anymore. We've got Katarina Devon, which also has a little bit of versatility. Activate main, trash this character. If your leader is the Blackbeard Pirates type, you can -1 cost one of your opponent's characters during this turn. Now, important to note, with the secondary ability of Katarina Devon, on KO, draw a card. That does not activate if you are using the activate main ability, because that is specifically saying you are trashing. Trashing and KOing are 2 different entities and 2 different keywords in the One Piece card game. So you don't get to go ahead and pop Devon, -1 cost, and then draw a card for the secondary ability. You don't get to do that. However, this card, when compared to Stronger, which forces you to trash a card from your hand as well as this character, course, you replace that card that you trash, but still, you're losing a 2k and another card in hand. Again, really, really interesting. And if anything, this card is purely going to be played because it's a 2k counter. And there are very, very limited 2k counter options in the Blackbeard Pirates archetype right now. We are seeing the ones that get played literally right here between these two cards in Shiryu and Stronger. So another 2k counter, Teach players will absolutely not complain. It's another great option to be able to run with. We'll wait off on the super rares just yet, because the super rares are just... I can't believe Bandai have printed them. I will be perfectly honest. They are so, so good for Teach. We'll go on to this card. And this is a card that I really, really like. This is Juan Wolf. 4-cost 6k blocker. If your leader has the Blackbeard Pirates type, this character gains blocker. So it's a 4-cost 6k blocker already anyway in Teach. And +1 cost for every 4 cards in your trash. Now, what other card in the Blackbeard Pirates archetype relies on 4 cards in your trash? Yeah, only probably one of the best attackers in the whole archetype in Jesus Burgess. So you're already feeding this secondary ability here because of Burgess, because of your Route 1 gameplay pattern. And it becomes +1 cost. So immediately with 12 cards in trash with 3 stacks, this blocker becomes ridiculously hard to remove with the tools that we've got right now. There are options to remove it, absolutely. If you're playing against Mono Black and you've got Lucci that can cost reduce, you've got Tempest Kit, you've got Hina, sure, you can remove it. But that is forcing a lot of resources out of your opponent to remove a blocker that could just come back anyway, because it's a 4-cost. You can 5-Zan this back into play and get the blocker on board, like we are doing at the moment with the 5-cost Katarina Devon at the moment, that can either get blocker, banish, or double attack that players are experimenting with. And the on-play, to trash 1 card from your hand, you ignore that. You're playing Marshal D Teach. Your on-plane effects are negated as well. So that's super, super important to remember before you think, oh, okay, the on-play makes me trash a card from hand. Sure, it helps funnel this ability. You don't care about this other line of text, because you're playing Teach. Your on-plays are negated as well. So this is just an unconditional 4-cost 6k blocker that potentially even comes into play as a, say, 6-cost 6k blocker or a 7-cost 6k blocker, which is really, really great, and combos already with 5-cost Kuzan from OP10. So this card, I'm not seeing as much chatter about this at the moment. Bear in mind, I've not been able to look at too much chatter. I've been busy at the moment throughout the most of my day, so I've just been able to get here, read the cards fully, and record this initial video here. But this card, it seems very, very good. I do feel like that this is potentially going to be a replacement for Katarina Devon, because it's working at the moment. I like Katarina Devon, but this is just so sticky on the board if you get those 4 stacks of cards in trash. I really, really like Juan Wolf. 2 final mechanically unique cards here. One of them is a brand new Kuzan. It's a 6-cost 6k Kuzan that's a blocker that on KO plays up to one of your Blackbeard Pirates type character cards with the cost of 5 or less from your trash, rested. So the slight drawback, character comes in rested, as opposed to 5-cost Kuzan where the character comes in active. But this is a blocker. So you have agency of when this on KO effect activates. When a blocker goes into the trash in the blocker step, it gets KO'd. So, hello, I get another 5-cost or less character into play rested. Also, important to note, what else is missing from this card text here about character cards with a cost of 5 or less? It does not specify other than Kuzan. So on your opponent's turn, you can ride the wave of a couple of their attacks. On their last attack, as long as it's powerful enough, you can block with this Kuzan. On KO effect triggers, you play out the 5-cost Kuzan that you've probably already used earlier in the early to mid game to bring out either Jesus Burgess or the Juan Wolf blocker or whatever you've brought into play. You've got that in the trash already. So you play out 5-Zan. Goes on to your turn. You then get the attack with 5-cost Kuzan as well, which I think is very, very underrated and underutilized because of how strong the Activate main ability is. You get to attack with that 5-cost Kuzan, and then use that Activate main ability to draw one card and play out another Blackbeard Pirates type character onto the board. So you can 6-cost Kuzan into 5-cost Kuzan, swing with that 5-cost, and then play Burgess as the Activate main for the remainder of the turn. That is unbelievable how good that combination is going to be. This card is going to be an auto-include in the Blackbeard Pirates deck, in the Teach deck going forward, I think. This is just an unbelievable character to be included here. As is the final character that we are going to talk about. And my initial reaction when I saw this was, I was stunned. I was speechless. So we've got a brand new Teach. It's 7-cost, 8,000 power Teach, which Activate main, you can rest this character and KO a 3-cost or less. Sound familiar? That's because this is Jack, without the draw one, trash one. So you don't get the filter, but you get the unrequested KO. You get the KO of a 3-cost or less, and it's an 8,000 power body like Jack is. So it's hard to attack into when you're the opponent. And even if you do manage to attack into it, even if you do manage to remove this, it's got a KO effect to add one black card from your trash to hand. No restrictions. Just add a mono black card from trash to hand. So if you're playing Teach and you're having one of those awkward hands that Teach can occasionally run into, you've mulliganed and you've drawn into 2 or 3 10-cost blockers, you've got Stage at the very least, so you can do some filter. But to filter, you're having to trash away one of those 10-cost blockers, right? You find 7-cost Teach, and you play it, and you can KO it, or you can force it to be KO'd, you just get the 10-cost blocker back. And even if your opponent doesn't KO this, it's just a consistent either 3-cost or less KO with the Activate main ability, or an 8k attacker. Potentially 9k if you committed onto it, which is those magic numbers of 7 and 9. The one thing I struggled to see, however, is how Teach players are going to build their decks going forward. Because the deck was already going to be tight enough as it is. You need to play your Van Augers, your Jesus Burgesses, either Doc Q or Shiryu from OP10, depending on what kind of avenue you're playing down. Lafitte, Full Edge, Shiryu, Stronger. You've already got so many cards that you need to include in the deck. How do you make room for 7-cost Teach and 6-cost Kuzan? Do you drop, say, Finger Pistol? I don't think so, because the card's either too good being played on Activate main, or being utilized as the trigger, being able to KO a 5-cost and then put 2 more cards in your trash to funnel in for Jesus Burgess, or potentially my boy San Juan Wolf. I don't know how the deck looks going forward. All I know is that if this is the kind of tempo and the kind of mindset that we're creating for these starter decks, I am super, super interested to see what the other 4 are going to look like. What cards is Shanks going to get? What cards is Bonnie going to get in these starter decks? I have no idea, but I want to throw this over to you now at this point. What do you think of these decks, first and foremost, of what we've had so far, this ST26 Luffy and the ST27 Marshal D Teach? What cards stand out to you? What cards are potentially slept on? And what cards, given these 2 starter decks, are you expecting to see in the other 4? I'm really, really excited to see what's going on, not only from a player point of view, but of course, from a caster point of view as well. So those are the 2 of the 6 decks that have been revealed. Now, once the other decks have been revealed, I will cover those as well on the channel. But until that point, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe along to the channel. Drop a comment as well with some other things that you'd like to see. As I said at the start of this video, this is kind of a little bit experimental. I know a few people have been asking and requesting me to start making some content, so I've gone full commitment, and I felt like that today was the perfect opportunity to do so with these brand new starter decks finally getting revealed. So drop a comment down below on some stuff that you'd like to see, and potentially some other games as well. It's not just the One Piece card game that I cover at the moment as well. So until then, I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.